Meeting of the Lake Mills City Council to order for Tuesday, March 18th. Misty, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Curler?
Here.
Ms. Schmager?
Here.
Ms. Quidnow?
Here.
Mr. Fields?
Here.
Mr. Waters?
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Our next agenda item is Councilmember Board Reports and Acceptance of Meeting Minutes. So we have council meeting minutes from March 4th and from our March 6th work session. We have Parks Board minutes from February 10th and the Lake Mills Housing Authority February meeting. Are there any questions or comments on any of those meetings? Mary?
I was just curious, is the date from the Housing Authority minutes actually from 2024 and not 2025? I didn't know if that was an error or if this was a year.
On the
And in the minutes.
It's my understanding that, yes, they are from 2024. They somehow had gotten missed or they weren't approved. But yes, Lisa Vincent, the deputy clerk, did call to verify and made sure that they were approved now.
So those are ones that were missing from last year? Is that what you're
Correct.
saying, Missy? Okay.
That was my understanding, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks for the clarification.
And I would also clarify that the Lake Mills Housing Authority technically is not under the council's, purview. I think they share those as a courtesy, and the city manager appoints the members of that board. So, any other questions, comments? Okay, well then we'll accept those minutes into our public record. We have our monthly Joint Rock Lake Committee monthly report. I don't see any of their board members here tonight, so it looks like we won't have a verbal report from them.
Is there any online?
I don't see anyone who is
Okay.
on that committee, so. Okay, so we'll move on to correspondence. Mary, would you like to kick it off?
Sure. I had correspondence regarding the burial ground information from Highway and regarding the Highway B property, RLIA meeting schedule and events. Parks Board agenda item came in as correspondence regarding Bartles Beach safety. Memo on the Jefferson County groundwater presentation, a correspondence on Sandy Beach, and a correspondence on pension funding.
Great, thank you. Greg?
I had the same, but also had a note about Indian mounds out in the township, actually. Well,
Okay.
I guess it's border property, township, and city, so, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Michelle?
I had the same, except for I also had correspondence regarding the Century property.
Great, thank you. Steve?
I had similar ones and introduction email for Circuit Court Judge Gentleman Running in Jefferson County.
Thank you. I think I received all the ones that Mary listed that went to all council members. I also don't think I had any other correspondence that you didn't list. I attended the Joint Rock Lake Committee last week, as well as yesterday's presentation on the history of the El DeFarco Library, so that was pretty interesting. Okay, so we'll move on next to questions and public comment, and I understand there are a few people registered already, so the public is encouraged to address the council at this time regarding items on the agenda. Public comments may also be made on items that are not on the agenda if you have registered with the city clerk before the meeting has been called to order. The state's open meetings law discourages action by the council on items not listed on the agenda. Please keep your comments limited to 3 minutes. State your name and address when starting your comments and fill out the sign-in sheet provided. If there is anyone attending online, please type your name and address in the chat feature so that the clerk can let us know that there's someone online. So we'll start within the room. I understand some people have already registered, so particularly if it's regarding an item on tonight's agenda, hopefully we can take those first, and then any other folks come on up.
Hi, my name is John Kopp. I live at 269 South Main Street. I'm here to discuss the Cottage Hotel Apartments. There's 6
John, excuse me for interrupting. Is your mic on? Because it's a little bit quiet.
It says it's on.
Okay, great, thank you.
There are 6 months and 2 weeks left, according to the agreement worked out with Mr. Luce. There's a lot of work to be done. I don't see it happening. There's not much getting done. They only work on it a few weeks out of the month. It's interesting that, you know, when Mr. Berry or Mr. Luce is asked to appear before the city council, that's the only time the place gets cleaned up. There's been garbage blowing around the neighborhood, and suddenly it disappears when he's asked to come before the city council. So maybe he should talk more often. The windows are now being framed, but if you look at the drawings that were submitted many months ago, they don't agree with what the framing looks like. So in other words, windows are being added or removed from the original drawings. So I'm not sure if he's added or removed drawings or had new drawings submitted for approval. I noticed that Troy submitted a list of things that still need to be done and that need to be approved by the state or by the city. I don't see that happening in the next 6 months. I think it's best now to just say, tear it down, be done with it. I don't see it happening in the next 6 months. He only has a few people working on it. I have yet to see more than 2 or 3 people in the building working at any time. So it's time to cut it, tear it down. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kopp. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak during public comment?
Good evening. Chris Lopak, 419 Campus Street. So my apologies first off on missing the last couple meetings. We had the flu running through our house, so my apologies. Drake, I did watch the last couple recordings and saw you had a baby. Congratulations, that's awesome. Lisa, in that same meeting you mentioned you'd received a correspondence from me. I was glad to hear that since after all I never heard back from you. By now though, that's not really a surprise, as over the last 4 months I've seen from the city the failure to take into account our city's own ordinances which our city attorney told me don't really apply to city employees, and then actually knelt down next to me right over here and thanked me for not quoting him the first time I stood right here. I've also seen the complete disregard for state statute that clearly states you can take my claim up still. I've seen the ineptitude to process the findings the ad hoc committee told you regarding trees like mine have elevated risks of causing damage when left unattended. I've also noticed the lack of awareness regarding previous examples in our city where the city covered these similar damages. Lastly, the inability to inquire or follow up regarding grant funding to Bayberry utilities, as well as provide any answer when asked about when the database was last audited. And since there's continued to be no action at all, I've taken it upon myself to audit your database for you. From September until now, there were only 4 trees added that have any measurable characteristics. There were some other trees, placeholders, et cetera, added, but 4 trees that have any measurable characteristics: DBH, diameter, breast height, the overall height, quality of the tree, quality of leaves, and so on. Of those 4, 3 were entered on the same day, with 2 being mine. You're very familiar with my situation by now. Where things get interesting is that although there were only 4 trees with significant measurables from September until February, somehow another sugar maple was entered on the exact same day as my sugar maple. Exact same type of tree, similar diameter, similar height, 50 to 75 feet, both had characteristics of good overall tree structure. The interesting part, though, is the other tree, just a few blocks away from me, had the comment of tree lost a large codominant lead. The area of the lost limb has a large pocket of decay and conchs. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Sounds like that should be on my tree, because that's exactly what happened to my tree at 419 Campus Street. However, none of that exists in the system. The same exact system the city insurance company and our city attorney have referred to with the municipal liability claim, since there is no record of issues ever existing with my tree. If another branch falls off right now while we're sitting here talking about this, the city can simply say municipal liability because there's no record of any tree issues ever occurring with my property. There's no record of the rot that the city found, and I shared in photos with you. No record that a majority of downtown businesses couldn't support their small business that day. No record that my other tree still has a power line going through it. How is that possible? How is it that another tree, the exact same type, was entered on the same day with the exact same issue, and yet this is my fifth, sixth time here, and there is zero record of issues with my property? How can that be possible? How is it that my tree did not exist in the database, even though in my time in Lake Mills, the city has taken down a tree on both sides of my property? Both of my neighbors have had the city take down trees, but mine just left unattended, didn't exist. Additionally, how is it that there are 6 other total sugar maples in the database with any measurable characteristics, and 100% of them are marked to be monitored and or removed by the city? 100% of them. That aligns with what our city arborist said about these types of trees being known to rot and split. But the city continues to say we had no idea this tree would break off.
Mr. Lopek, that's 3 minutes, if you could wrap
I'm
up,
almost
please.
done. Every time I've been here, I've checked my emotion and personal opinions at the door and stuck to facts, ordinances, statute. You see, one thing you don't know is the day before this tree fell, my wife and 7-year-old daughter were in the front yard the entire day. My 3 kids ride their bikes by that tree daily. My boys play football in the front yard. My little girl plays soccer. I have kept that emotion bottled up since September and have stuck to facts through all of this. But when I'm at the store or businesses downtown that you all frequent, community members come up to me and share their opinions about this council, to the point where people have flat out said they are going to write my name in for city council. And I laugh about it, but perhaps that is the next step, because it'll be a lot tougher to ignore me when I'm sitting up there next to you. I'll see you in 2 weeks. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Lopek. Is there anyone else who would like to address the council during public comment? Please step forward.
Good evening, Jack Chavez. I live at 1011 Brewster Drive, apartment 2 here in Lake Mills. Before I begin what I wanted to say tonight, I'm not in the habit of wearing Badger novelty ties. However, today at Rotary, we honored a person, or Lake Mills lost a great person. Ken Stetson was killed last week in a car accident, and we honored him today at Rotary. And we were all required to wear Badger attire because he was such a big fan of the Badgers, and I think everybody knew that. Again, thank you for letting me come before this body. I am a candidate for Circuit Court Judge, Branch 1. I would like to introduce myself. My name is Jack Chavez. My real name is John. Jack, I've been Jack since my college days. I'll answer to either. Now, 35 years ago, I walked through the Jefferson County Courthouse doors for the very first time, and this was as a Jefferson County Assistant District Attorney. My family settled here in Jefferson County. It was over on Highway A and Highway C in 1990, and it was the old Erkey Farm property at one time, if anybody is familiar with the Erkey Farms. Previous to this, all my schooling took place in public schools, including high school, college, and law school. The University of Wisconsin-Platteville is where I received my Bachelor of Science in Psychology, and my Juris Doctorate or law degree I received from the University of Wisconsin Law School. This was in 1990. Shortly thereafter, I was hired as an assistant DA here in Jefferson County. After about 3 years as an assistant DA, I went into private practice, starting with an office in Cambridge and later right here in Lake Mills. That's where I am presently located, over on Lake Street across from the Commons. In between college and law school, I was hired as a probation officer down in the state of Illinois. Indeed, my great interest in the law came from my time as a probation officer. Now, with 30 years of experience, 30-plus years of experience, I believe I will bring both knowledge and wisdom to the bench. And I pledge equality, respect, and dignity for all that come before my court. Finally, suffice it to say, ladies and gentlemen, that I would not be running if I, along with most other attorneys in this county and many in law enforcement in this county, did not think a change was needed in Branch 1. That is, if Branch 3 and Judge Daring or Branch 4 with Judge Brantmeyer were up for election, I would not be running. I would not be running against them. They had a wide breadth of experience when they took the bench, and it shows. They are excellent, well-experienced judges. Simply put, my opponent did not have that experience, and in spite of his 6 years on the bench, his lack of experience shows on a daily basis. Please vote on April 1st. I encourage you all to vote, and I want to thank you again for your time tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Chavez.
Can I have a moment?
Yes, Mr. Waters.
Thank you, Mr. Chavez, for mentioning Ken Stetson. That was the first time I had heard about this. I've had many great experience with Ken and his wife, Dixie. They're great community members, and I'm very saddened to hear about his passing, but thank you.
Yeah, he will be missed.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Waters. Is there anyone else who would like to speak during public comment? Is there anyone online, Misty?
Nobody is registered online.
Okay, thank you. With that, then, we will close public comment for this evening. And we'll move on to item 8, which is the city manager's report. Mr. Daly?
The monthly financial reports are included, as well as the regular report from Ryan Brothers for our ambulance service. I will note we have not received any correspondence from the DNR since our last official letter was sent to them, so no update on that. And we are still actively working on, and Ms. Curler will touch on this on the agenda item, on the scheduling and planning for Sandy Beach out of the work session. And then I have nearly completed the red line version of the municipal tree 594 trees ordinance from the recommendations from the tree committee. So it'll be in the formal, what you're used to seeing, the form that you're used to seeing with the old ordinance with strike throughs for deleted items and red for the insertions, what they're looking at. So I believe we should have that back before you in April if everything comes together well. So those are the updates I have for you. If there's any questions, let me know.
Any questions for Mr. Daly this evening? Okay, thank you very much. So we'll move on to council business. And our first item under council business is a discussion and update on the Bayberry Inn. And I see we have a memo from Troy Evenson, and he's here this evening. So, and I also see we have the property owner in the audience. So if there are any questions for Mr. Luce, we can take that up. So do you want to kick it off, Troy?
Sure. So you guys saw the recent pictures that was all taken last week. Coincidentally, right after that, I did hear from Barry's architect. He was there the same day and did reach out to me. And him and I have worked on other projects before, and I kind of expressed some concern about it finishing up. He was still optimistic. He said that Barry had recently hired a couple of contractors, some well-known contractors, to start plumbing, sprinklers. I think he had a heating contractor almost signed. So kind of as my memo said, is it doable? Yes. It's going to take some diligent and continuous efforts from here on out to meet the deadline. But Barry's aware of it. I had a long conversation with him, and that's why I invited him here to discuss with you guys, or if you had any questions or concerns that you could hear it directly from Barry instead of myself.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Evenson?
The only thing I'd add is there is still time under the development agreement for Mr. Luce to complete his obligations under it. I do not believe it'd be within the council's authority to revoke those rights prior to that deadline passing. Significant progress still needs to be made. There's a lot of work to be done. As Troy has mentioned, it will take a significant amount of work in order to meet the obligations and responsibilities under that development agreement. But as far as a default under what has been agreed to, the council will need to wait until the deadline has passed.
Okay, thank you. And then according to the memo, that is October 1st, right? Is that timeline? Okay. Any questions or comments? Mary?
I have a question. You mentioned plumbing, I think HVAC and sprinklers. In your memo, it notes state-approved plumbing plans, HVAC plans, sprinkler plans. I'm curious where that state-approved
Sure, so-
notable unfinished item fits in with your comment.
Yeah, so it sounds like he just now secured them as contractors for the project.
Okay.
So then what they'll do is they'll go on site, draw up the plans, submit them to the state for their state approval. Then they would come back to us to get permits for each individual mechanical. So the plumbers would need to do it, HVAC needs to do it, and the sprinklers need to do it. You don't need state-approved electrical plans for this project.
Okay, thank you.
Steve, any questions?
I guess the only thing I would ask is to follow up on John's comments, is to make sure our, like the windows and stuff, following drawings and specifications accordingly. I guess I'd look for you for insight to that.
Well, as of now, there's nothing installed, so there's openings there. I guess I'll have to wait and see once things are framed in. Final rough-in inspection I haven't done yet, so they're still, I guess, modifying the framing. There was the architect, like I said, was there. He had a few changes to make, so I really don't know what the windows and door openings are going to look like quite yet. It's still kind of in the demo / very rough framing stage.
Anything else, Steve?
No, that'll do it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. So that'll be something to look at when it gets to that point. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you for the update. So that will conclude our discussion of the Bayberry Inn. So the next item on our agenda is a recap of the Sandy Beach work session. Our council had a work session with staff on March 6th and discussed the Sandy Beach Park redevelopment project, and I was asked to just give a summary of that for our citizenry so people know kind of where we're at. During that meeting, there were several items that were posted with that agenda if people want to look at those, but we discussed it. We reviewed the 2018 Sandy Beach Master Plan. We reviewed the projects that have been completed to date. And then we had a discussion about what the future priorities should be. So there was general consensus to ask staff to prioritize the infrastructure improvements at Sandy Beach. That was one of the big drivers for doing the redevelopment project, and a number of years have passed. So that we've asked staff, as Drake alluded to develop some recommendations and timeline for working on the sewer, water, and parking lot. The council also asked staff to identify whether there might be any other short-term or temporary improvements for recreational users or some of the parking challenges there that could be addressed in the short term. And we also talked about making a referral to the Parks Board so that they could take a look at the recreational uses and give us a recommendation there. So we didn't really put together anything in particular that we had in mind for the Parks Board. So if, unless there's an objection, I guess I would ask staff to maybe draft a resolution for our next meeting that we could with staff suggestions on what items would be appropriate to refer to the Parks Board. I think some of the things that we talked about were the current recreational uses and some of the activities where there are rentals and things like that, and to kind of take a look at those. So I think that was our general discussion. Anything I missed or anything else that council members want to highlight? Okay.
Can I ask a
Mary,
question?
yeah.
We didn't discuss, kind of like when we have some of the outcomes of the work to look at the mobile home park transformation or project, if there is a role for the Economic Development Committee or a different committee to look at financially, how do we, in our best interest, make this all work? We had talked about parking, we talked about the fees that the mobile home park renters, if you will, leasees will have to incur. And so it's a complicated, it's a financial, exercise, and I don't know if there is something that would be of interest or of a benefit for one of our subcommittees to be involved or to move that along more quickly, or is that something that the city council will directly be taking on? Because I wasn't involved in any of the financial planning early on in the Sandy Beach project.
Yeah, Drake, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I'd say right now, it's under city council jurisdiction. The city council can obviously refer or assign a task to a subordinate committee or commission board as it sees fit. We certainly could do so after we have come up with the preliminary calendar and estimates and kind of prioritization of work. After you've seen that, you can refer it for further analysis, refer it for further discussion, refer it for to look at other options that may exist. You certainly would be able to do that. As far as, which board or commission might be most appropriate, it's difficult to say until we kind of know what pieces of it the council wants more information on. But I think until the council takes some action to refer it to somebody, I think it stays at the council level.
Okay.
So that would be an option
When
moving
we get there,
forward.
when
if
we
we
get more
thought-
information.
Yeah,
Okay,
we wanted
thank you.
more information. Great, thank you. Any other comments or additions on the recap of the Sandy Beach work session? Okay, seeing none, we can move on to our next agenda item, which is Resolution 25-16. Misty, would you read that title for us, please?
City Council Resolution 25-16, policy revision regarding the process for annual evaluation of city manager job performance and amendment to a handbook for evaluating the city manager.
Move to approve Resolution 25-16.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Motter, seconded by Ms. Schmaker. Do we want to have staff describe this, or Mary take the lead on? This is a follow-up to a discussion that we had previously. Mary, you want to?
Yes, well,
Go ahead.
if you recall, back in January, we discussed some opportunities for enhancement with the city manager performance review handbook and process. And so Dan Drescher supported changing the handbook. So we kind of did a back and forth red line, and the materials that are loaded for review are the proposed final product. So I'd like to just ask if there were any edits or changes or concerns you had on any of the materials. I think now would be a great time for us to have that dialogue to know whether we may need to go back and make some changes before approving this as final.
Comment?
Yeah, go ahead, Greg.
I think the changes you've made look good, and I guess I'm kind of at the point where I'd like to live it, go through one cycle, see how it goes, and if we have, maybe make suggestions after that if it doesn't quite go right, or we have questions that we want to beef up or something later. But to me, it seems like we're at a good place to move forward at this point.
Michelle?
I'm going to agree with Greg. I think that we do need to go ahead and live it and play around with it once we've lived through it. Because as we already have found out, when we do the things and then we ask ourselves, is this really how we want to do the things? That's where the tweaks and the efficiency come into play. So, yep, I'm going to agree with Greg on that one.
Steve, any thoughts?
No, I think this is going to be much better, more streamlined, got rid of a lot of the redundancy. So, no, I think this will make it much easier next time.
Great, thank you. I guess I would echo everybody else's thoughts. I think it's ready to be put into use. I think one thing that we've talked about that doesn't need to be addressed in here is whether there might be some electronic system, simple system that could be developed for people to submit their individual reviews, but with the smaller number of questions, I think even if it's a manual process, it will be much easier than it's been in the past. So.
Well, upon approval, I did put together with Michelle's, she had mentioned a Google Doc. I do have an online document that I would like to pilot or test to see if it works through kind of our system here. And so I have that ready to go.
Fantastic.
Just as a test. And so maybe Michelle or I can send it. I'll have to figure out how I can send it to someone to try it out. But we might have that ready to go for this process this year.
That sounds great. Yeah, so the
It's
first
your
time.
idea, I just.
That's great. Thank you both for working on that. Yeah, that'll just make things simpler and easier to put it all together and meet all of our timelines. So any further discussion or questions? Drake, any comments from you?
comment?
I do not, no.
Okay.
No, not with regard to policy.
Okay. All right. Seeing no further discussion, can we have a roll call vote, please, on Resolution 25-16?
Schmager,
Aye.
Ms. Quedno,
Aye.
Mr. Fields,
Aye.
Mr. Waters,
Aye.
Ms. Curler.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you, and thanks again, Mary, for taking that on, and Dan for working with her to make that update. Okay, our next agenda item is Resolution 25-17. Misty, would you read that title, please?
City Council Resolution 25-17, approving overnight camping at Sandy Beach Park for participants of Catamaran Racing Association of Wisconsin, CRAW, Rock and Roll Regatta Special Event.
I move to approve City Council Resolution 25-17 as written.
Second?
Motion by Ms. Quidnow, seconded by Mr. Waters. Staff?
Director Schreiner's online if you have any questions of him. This has become an annual approval. So it's something that you would have seen before. Staff recommends approval. If there's any questions, we're happy to answer them.
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Schreiner?
No, we've seen this in the past and have, as far as I know, no issues. It's a very neat event to go watch. So it seems like a good, not a cause, but a good event for the community. So.
Okay, great. If there's no further discussion, we'll have a roll call vote, please, on Resolution 25-17.
Ms. Quedno,
Aye.
Mr. Fields,
Aye.
Mr. Waters,
Aye.
Ms. Curler,
Aye.
Ms. Schmager.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. Our last agenda item under council business is Ordinance 1273. This is the third reading. So, Misty, would you please conduct the third reading?
City Council Ordinance 1273, amending City of Lake Mills Ordinance Section 660-44 Sub A, Official Zoning Map, City of Lake Mills, Wisconsin, Parcel Identification Number 246-0713-1232095, Petitioner Owner Joshua Schultz and Jeremy Furch, 120 East Pine Street, Lake Mills, Wisconsin.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve City Ordinance 1273.
Second.
Okay, I think I heard Mary first, so motion by Mr. Waters, seconded by Ms. Schmaker. This is our third reading tonight, so we do have a memo from Troy, and Mr. Schultz is also in the audience. So does anyone have any questions for staff or for the property owner regarding this proposed zoning amendment?
I think in our last meeting, we asked some questions and got some good answers. So I'm resting at this point.
Nothing further? Okay. Seeing no questions or interest in discussion, let's have a roll call vote, please, on ordinance 1273.
Mr. Fields?
Aye.
Mr. Waters?
Aye.
Ms. Curler?
Aye.
Ms. Schmager?
Aye.
Ms. Quidnow?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. Good luck with the rest of your project, Mr. Schultz. Okay, that concludes council business for this evening. So our last item is recommendations for future agendas. Does any council member have any recommendations or suggestions?
The two that were discussed earlier in the meeting, Sandy Beach and the trees,
Trees?
the forestry project.
Yep, 594 trees I anticipate should be ready for the April 1st meeting, that ordinance with its revisions. Sandy Beach, coordination of schedules of all the people that need to be involved is difficult this time of year due to different spring breaks that people are on. So that one I'm not as, I don't anticipate will be on an agenda on April 1st. But I certainly hope to be able to give an update in the second meeting in April.
Just to follow up on that, would it be possible for April 1st to get a resolution for referral to the Parks Board, at least just for that piece?
Yep, that piece we can do.
Okay.
The timeline and schedule of the infrastructure improvements with some preliminary estimates, I would anticipate later, either second meeting in April, first meeting in May is our target.
Okay, that sounds great. And just, I guess, sort of a point of order regarding the tree ordinance. That was a deliverable from the tree committee. So the council hasn't, like, received it from the tree committee. So I don't know that anybody is ready to sponsor it yet. So I'm wondering if it could be distributed to us first and then determine, or were you just going to bring it to our agenda for discussion or for adoption?
I typically would list it as action available to you, but I think in this case, we could list it as a discussion item and not list it as a first reading in order to give, so that you can see it. I'll distribute it as soon as it's completed. I guess I'd have to relook at our ordinances to see, the council asked for the tree committee to submit something, so whether I suppose it would still need a sponsor in order to carry it forward, but I think you can have a discussion before someone gets to that point to get to a comfort level with it.
So we can bring it to the meeting as a discussion item with the red line copy so that we can review it and have a discussion at that point and then decide how to move forward.
Correct.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I like that idea. That
Yeah.
sounds good. Okay, thank you. Anything from council members? Any suggestions for future agenda items? Okay, seeing none, that's our last agenda item, so I will call this meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.